Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic with a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Saturday. Welcome to episode 446 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we are going to be talking about, oh boy, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, of which there are many variable names for, and how it is set right now to be one of the biggest box office flops of the year. I feel like I've been saying that a lot recently because, of course, we had Elemental come out, set to be yet another massive flop for Disney, in addition to The Flash being a massive flop, in addition to Little Mermaid still being a massive flop. However, it is hilarious that The Little Mermaid, which is still expected to lose roughly $100 million, is actually on the higher end and on the better side of box office flops when in comparison to films like Elemental, The Flash, and now Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. So we'll break down the numbers. We'll talk also about what the projections are as far as ticket sales are concerned to give a little bit of context there. And it should be a pretty fun time in addition to our typical box office discussion, but also a blessed feast of the most precious blood of our Lord. We made it through the month of June, which, of course, as you all know, is the month of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, despite what anyone else in the media and in pop culture might want to tell you. So I hope everyone had a blessed June for that very reason. But because the culture has tried to take over with a lot of silly nonsense, it is nice to leave that silly nonsense behind. Before going any further, though, please make sure to smash that like button on YouTube, light that fire button over on Odyssey, and smash the rumble button as well. We're also live on Kick if you happen to prefer that platform. Again, I like to try to give people as many options as they possibly can. But we'll go ahead and say hello to the people that we got in the chat. We got Abomination over on Odyssey, holding down the fort over there. What's going on, good sir? King Kane Rumsky, who holds down the fort on Rumble right now, is over there. He tagged to say, happy Karen Fleabag weekend. Oh, indeed it is. And let's just say the Fleabag star herself has proven to be box office poison, question mark? I think there's a lot of factors as to why the film's not making money. She is definitely one of them, but I would not say she is the primary one. And when Phoebe Waller-Bridge is not the primary reason your movie's losing money, that spells and kind of speaks to there being a ton of problems. One could even say a plethora of problems. Let's go ahead and say hello to the people in the YouTube chat. First at 146 early, General Wingster was here, our pet troll. So what you're saying is that since Crystal Skull is more memorable, it's a better movie than Dial of Destiny. Thanks, Odin. I needed that vindication. Yeah, some people, especially last night on Friday Night Tights, didn't quite understand, I think, what I was trying to say, which is that I think that the worst movie as a full movie is absolutely Crystal Skull, but the worst Indiana Jones movie is without a doubt Dial of Destiny. I think they're both terrible movies, and I think that's the other factor as well. We're talking about two terrible, gosh-awful movies. One just happens, I think, to be a better movie, whereas the other is just a worse Indiana Jones movie, if that makes any sense. Some people might agree, some people might disagree. I'm not saying either film is good, but at the very least, I can go back and rewatch a film like Crystal Skull, which, remember, also is not an Indiana Jones movie, as there are only 3 Indiana Jones movies. But I can at least go back, rewatch it, and laugh at just how bad it is, whereas I have no desire to ever rewatch the movie that we ended up getting in regards to the Dial of Destiny. But yeah, neither of them are good by any means. Dan Crane, thank you for being a member for 14 months in a row at the Citizen of Asgardian level. Appreciate you being here. We got John Edgar in the chat. What is going on? We got Orange Reviews, who is my king mod on the channel. Please do be respectful and follow the rules. We don't have too many. Just be respectful. Don't spam. And be patient. Also, if you have a comment or question, please put @Odin at the very beginning of your comment, @Odin. It lets me know that you're trying to get my attention, and that's all I ask. If you want to donate, if you want to super chat, anything like that, you are more than welcome to do so. It definitely does help. It definitely is appreciated. However, you do not feel obligated to do so. Thanatos Lazitas, what is going on? I am not the person you remember. Move along. I see what you did there. Lance Mola, what's up, brother? Happy Saturday to you and everyone here. Good sir. Did you watch the Forbidden Door pay-per-view? If not, do you want me to send it? I have seen it, and overall, I liked it. I do think that the Daniel Bryan match being the last match, though, or Bryan Danielson, I should say, I think that was a mistake. I really do think that was a mistake. The match was good. However, nothing can beat the Kenny Omega match. I mean, that the fact that the Kenny Omega match was not last is to me insane. It was terrible booking, and not to mention the heel turn for Jungle Boy was, I think it's one of the dumbest decisions that they've ever possibly made. But anyway, those are my quick wrestling thoughts from one of the few wrestling fans that are there. Nebraska. Let's see. I don't know if I can see the full name there. Let me see if I can extend this out. Nebraska because over on Rumble, what's up? Says, I'm moving to Rumble as much as I can. This video is so much better. Well, hey, Nebraska because, thank you for being here. Appreciate you for joining. Can get Rumsky tagged over on Rumble and said, I just had a friend of mine tell me after watching it that Dial of Destiny was the third best indie flick. How do you help someone like that? You really can't, Kane Rumsky. When you have someone not only thinking this movie is good, but also that it's one of the best Indiana Jones movies, they're beyond help at this point. I honestly don't know what you can possibly say to help them. Because honestly, it's one of those questions that, to kind of, put the facade away for a moment, it really is difficult for me to understand why people enjoy movies like this, right? Obviously, there's that degree and that level of subjectivity with most things. But when it comes down to films like this, the way in which they are presented, the way in which the film itself is made, it's just so objectively flawed. It is so difficult to see how one could have a lot of subjective enjoyment. Again, I can understand why some people might enjoy certain things. For instance, a lot of people have enjoyed the first 20 minutes or so of the movie. Again, that makes sense to me. But when you would talk about the entirety of the movie, I mean, when a chase scene starts to put you to sleep, as the chase scene in Dial of Destiny, I didn't fall asleep, but let's just say I was teetering on the edge of consciousness during a chase scene. And also, I had taken a 5-hour energy before going to the movie just so that I wouldn't fall asleep with the film being as long as it was and assuming that the film wouldn't be very good. And so even with all of those factors in play, the fact that it still had me on the very sleepy side, especially during that chase scene, I think that speaks volumes. So, anyway, Keely Chow is a member on the channel. What's going on, Keely Chow? Thank you very much for being here. Zion Waters, I saw what you did. Thank you very much for becoming a Chosen of Valhalla member over on Subscribestar. I hopefully have directed you to all the pertinent channels on Discord. So I tagged you in the giveaways channel. By the way, if you are a member at the Keeper of the Bifrost level, specifically on sorry, I don't know why I've forgotten this myself. If you're a Keeper of the Bifrost level or above on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals, just those three, you right now have the ability to enter in for a giveaway for the John Wick Chapter 4 4K Steelbook. So again, this is only exclusive to my Discord channel, specifically for anyone Keeper of the Bifrost level and above who is a member on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. You have access to that giveaways channel. So I'm still taking entries for that. We'll probably be giving this away within the next day or so. But anyway, figured I'd let you know. Zion Waters, thank you very much. I'll have to give you a vocal shout out for becoming a new member, as I do not have my July video yet, as things are still processing. Let's see. Great Wuda in the chat. What's going on? Keely Chow also hanging out. Keely Chow, how are you? The baby Thor and Freya doing? We're all doing quite well. Had some random storms today, but overall doing okay. Star Goose over on Rumble. What is going on? Thanks for your insight. You demand, Star Goose. Appreciate it. Great Wuda rocking those emotes. Appreciate you being here. Abomination over on Odyssey says, Indy rode off into the sunset. The following canonical story is that he got exhausted from dehydration because the last water he had was the magic cup. He comes to with his dad and Salah giving him water and laughing as Indy describes these hallucinations about aliens and ancient Romans. Seriously, like that's the only way, like headcanon wise, I think is the only way to salvage it if you have seen the two monstrosities that followed, Last Crusade. But let's be honest, Last Crusade is the last one, and it just makes sense logically too. Literally, there is the riding off into the sunset, and I think that is something that is a very important key factor to all of this. And yeah, I think it's the best way for us to, some people might try to call it cope, but ultimately it is something that's so incredibly important. is so incredibly important as, again, fans of this franchise. And I wouldn't consider myself to be a mega fan by any means. Again, there's still a lot of things that I don't know. I've only seen the films a certain number of times, but I do enjoy them quite a bit. And so I enjoy them enough to recognize just how damaging the last two attempts have been. And the fact that one film coming out back in, 2008, and they've had all of these years to try to get something right, and they still can't do it. It's crazy. Let's see. We got Mr. Roy hanging out over on YouTube. What is going on? Thank you very much for being here. It looks like we've got a Yahtzee hanging out over on Odyssey Abomination. If you could take care of that person, I'd appreciate it. Laura says, a side note, Eric July was interviewed on Daily Wire's Morning Wire podcast. Nice. I didn't know they did interviews like that. That's really cool. Shout out to Eric July. Isom 2 doing great. Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father. Thank you very much for being here. Says, working in the background, have a funeral homily to preparable. Again, I understand the sad face, but Father, you more so than anyone else know this is an attempt. This is a time for us to be able to pray for the repose of their soul, because ultimately, if the person was able to die in that state of grace, then ultimately the victory has been achieved by them, or rather, more accurately, is being experienced by them. So that's why funerals are, though again, makes sense for us to feel sorrow, should be attempts for us to hopefully have a sense of rejoicing as well. Hopefully. Joey Horn, hail to you, Joey Horn. Thank you very much for being here. Mick Rib Prime in the chat. We got Laura, the Modern Major General Story, hanging out in the chat as well. Thank you very much for being here. Let us see. Who else? We'll get into the box office reporting on Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny in just a second. Let's see. Father Chris Miller says, a PSA as we near the 4th of July. 5 years of purgatory for every firework you shoot off after midnight. 50 years for every M80. I'm pretty sure that's not in the Recolta, Father, but I appreciate the silliness nonetheless. Rob D, what's up, Odin? Just popping to say hi. I won't be staying. Watching fireworks. I see Flash dropped from 1,500 screens this weekend. Oh, well. Yeah, it is one of the biggest drops I've ever seen in just a few weeks of release. Typically, you see a film have almost no change from week 1 to week 2, and then week 2 to week 3, you sometimes see a change, and if you do, it's usually pretty small. The fact that they're dropping it, and they have dropped it from over 1,500 screens, that is the studio saying very clearly that they have no hope for that movie. And also the fact that the film is just weeks now out from a digital release also, I mean, they're waving the white flag. They are clearly waving the flag of surrender. They recognize that that film is going to be yet another massive loss for them. And remember, whereas Disney has had some massive losses up front and still has a couple other films that likely will lose money down the line, when it comes to Warner Brothers, they have a crap ton of movies still yet to come out. And even though, and I finally did see the trailer for Dune 2, and I think some people are overhyping the trailer. Again, I am excited for the film because I like Denis Villeneuve. I like what he has done. I like his vision. What he is able to do with such a small budget in comparison to some of these other big budget films we're going to be talking about is amazing. However, the trailer doesn't really have me excited. A lot of people kind of really hyped it up as a really awesome trailer, and I watched it and I said, I'm not really all that pumped for this. Like, the trailer at least is not making me interested in it. And I don't see how it could possibly have a general impact to make other people who are not already planning, or at least aren't already slightly invested or slightly interested in this story and slightly interested in this universe of Arrakis and of the story of the Mujahideen and all these other things. You know, I think that it's not necessarily going to grab people. It might, but I don't know. It just wasn't as powerful as some people were kind of playing it off to be. At least that's my take on that. All right, we do got some super chats / comments to get to, and then we'll jump into the box office news. So first off, Orange Hat Reviews, thank you very much for being a member at 36 months. Whoo boy. He says, has it been 3 years? Wow. I hear Dial of Destiny has broken. IJ fans, Gather Kennedy will fail up, and more rumors will persist that she'll be fired. Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that, Orange Chat. And thanks for being a member for 3 years and for being a part of the channel for, I think, even longer than that. I mean, yeah, these rumors come up every time, right? Every time Disney has a project that ultimately fails or doesn't do well, the first thing that comes up is, well, Kathleen Kennedy. It's like, bro, I've heard that tune way too many times. I remember when she was going to be fired after The Last Jedi. I remember when she was going to be fired after Solo lost $100+ million at the box office. I remember when she was going to be fired after all of these things. It always comes up and it never turns out to be true. And now I'm starting to hear more nuanced arguments saying like, oh, well, we're not saying that it's going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen soon. It's like, well, everyone leaves eventually. I mean, no one stays in power. No one stays in certain roles forever. And what we do know is that if anyone should have been fired, she should have been fired a long time ago. So even though we look at this movie and we look at this film being a massive financial failure for Disney, this is not the first time that this has happened. This is not the first time that she has failed. So I'm sorry, but people can have sources, but I have heard too many people claiming sources, people that I in general like, people that I even at one point maybe even had trusted, but I don't trust sources. I honestly don't. I really, really don't. Just because a source says something does not automatically make it true. I do appreciate the people who say, these are my sources, take it with a grain of salt, because at the very least, they're admitting that there is question to the truth and the validity of it. But again, I'm just so sick and tired of that narrative. It's happened so many times at this point. It's laughable at this point. And so until it actually happens, until she's actually gone, and I still think the most likely scenario is that she steps down of her own free will, that she steps down and retires. I mean, again, show me that she's actually been fired before claiming anything else at this point. First, it's one of those, first time shame on you, first time shame on me. Sorry, first time shame on you, second time shame on me, that kind of thing. It's like we're so sick and tired of it. Nebraska because sources have been pretty reliable for certain people. Exactly, Nebraska because the YouTuber you mentioned has claimed Kathleen Kennedy is going to be fired. How many times? And how many times has it not turned out to be true? It's ridiculous. It really, really is ridiculous. Abomination, I'll go ahead and take care of it. There we go. I removed the comment. So, I don't know if moderation allows you to remove comments or not, but there was an actual real life Yahtzee over there posting a link to a website. So, but yes, Orange Art Reviews, thank you very much for being a member. Keely Chow, thanks for being a member for 2 months at the Army of Asgard level. There are only 3 Indiana Jones movies. That is a fact. That is absolutely a fact. And Big Raj, thank you very much for the giant thumbs up sticker. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Also, oh my goodness, this one kind of flew away from me. Low Watermark, thank you very much, good sir. Let me go ahead and refresh that real quick. Low Watermark, thank you very much for that $50 donation via Streamlabs. YouTube ain't getting none of that. You're awesome, dude. Low Watermark with the simple comment, Hail Odin. Hail to you, Low Watermark. Always very supportive on the channel, man. I really do appreciate it. You are awesome. Thank you. Much love. Much, much love. All right. Yeah, that is a 50. Nick Braun, you're right. I saw that in the live chat. Thanks for the 50 donation, Low Watermark. You're great. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the Indiana Jones box office news. Before we do, though, I do have the dog cam set up. So boom, there it is. There it is. We got River hanging out right there, tucked up in her little ball. Very, very, very tired. Let me see if I can get some zoom in on that. Boom, there she is. And then we also got Willow on the other camera. It's amazing what happens when you got old cell phones, when you got old Android smartphones. You can use various apps to use as secondary cameras. And look at that. We got Puppet Cam. We got the Puppet Cam, and they are adorable. Okay. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the big story, which, of course, Indiana Jones. And oh boy, we got Tony over on Deadline with his word games once again. By the way, Reed, thank you very much for the $10 donation via Streamlabs. I'll get to that in just a second, man. Thank you for your generosity. But Indiana Jones and the Blase box office. Oh, really? Oh, really? Is that the case, Tony? Oh, Tony, and Nance over at Deadline are always coming up with the best titles and the best, let's just be honest, the best excuses for why films aren't doing well these days. But it says, Indiana Jones the Blase box office, why Dial of Destiny at $60 million opening isn't setting records for franchise finale. Again, Even the wording of that already is trying to downplay just how bad these numbers actually are, right? By saying, oh, it's not setting records. Let's talk about why it's not setting records. It's like, no. How about instead we talk about that this film is set to be a gigantic flop? It goes on to say here, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny is still bound to open at the bottom of end of tracking's projection of 60 million as of this morning. Oh boy, there's some type errors here. I saw an estimate in the Flash vicinity of 55 million last night and took an Alka-Seltzer out of shock. Really? Tony, this is your problem, Tony. The fact that this shocks you, I think says a lot about what you're doing in your industry and what you're doing wrong. Hopefully Dial of Destiny doesn't fall apart tonight, and at least stays on course for a Mission Impossible Fallout-type opening in the $60 million range over 3 days. That figure might be good for exhibition and popcorn sales over the 5-day holiday weekend, but it stinks for a movie that has reported cost of $250 to $300 million before you take into account marketing cost. No. This film was reported as costing $295, and we now have updates that they at the very least admit that it costs at least $300 million. So don't try and play those games, Tony from Deadline. However, since the movie premiered to a lackluster review at Cannes, oh, that's very kind, and landed like a wet towel on tracking 3 weeks ago, and didn't budge its projections despite having significantly louder marketing and publicity global campaign than The Flash, including $90 million from promotional partners, it's been baffling how a storied franchise can end on a downer note at the box office in its finale. Has it been? I mean, this is something that we have been predicting is going to happen for a long time. This is something that many of us suspected would probably end up happening. We did not think that it would be this much of a flop, that it would be this much of a financial disaster. But to try to act as if this is baffling that the movie's not doing well? I mean, from the very start of when they announced Phoebe Waller-Bridge as being the female lead in the movie, that automatically was a sign. That automatically was making us go, wait a minute, we know Phoebe Waller-Bridge. We know what she's done in Solo: A Star Wars Story. We know what she did to James Bond, and it's not good. I found the movie out at Cannes to be too plug and play, laden in tropes of the franchise from the kid sidekick to video game-like action. It completely lacked the breadth and nuance that Steven Spielberg provided in action scenes of the older films. And I'm a James Mangold fan. Oh, are you a Mangold fan? Said that very happily. He knows how to make a styled and dramatically charged movie just like Spielberg. I'm not too far off in my take on the film. Oh boy. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Now you're just being silly. I'm not too far off. CinemaScore gave it a B+, which isn't that far from the previous unloved 2008 installment, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which landed a B. And this is your biggest problem, Tony, is that you take any seriousness whatsoever of CinemaScore. CinemaScore is a garbage tier organization with garbage tier analytics. All they ever release is simply the score. That's all they release. They don't release the data. They don't tell you how many people they surveyed, what markets those people were in, or any of those other details. All they give you is just the score. So to try to come out and say that, oh, the CinemaScore is a B+, so that's better than Crystal Skull, and, it's I'm just so, it just drives me nuts every time. Every time anyone gives any credence whatsoever to CinemaScore. Garbage tier. Complete garbage tier. So what the hell went wrong? He sounds mad with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Lucasfilm is so precious and fastidious when it comes to developing Star Wars properties. Tony, you're drunk. When he says that he took an Alka-Seltzer, when he found that some of the projections from some were saying it was going to be $55 million, he says he took an Alka-Seltzer to try to, take care of the shock. No, I'm pretty sure this guy's drunk right now. This guy has to be drunk. Look at this. Lucasfilm is so precious and fastidious when it comes to developing Star Wars property. And the legend with the Indiana Jones is that these movies could never be made unless George Lucas and Spielberg saw eye to eye on the script. The fact that he says that comment, and it seems to be in seriousness, is just laughable. Oh my gosh. Remember all the TLC that J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan took in hatching Force Awakens? There were stories of them walking down New York City streets, hatching storylines. Given the black eye that Lucasfilm took on Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, and Solo from fans, hey, at least you admit that. at least you now will admit Last Jedi is a part of that, they're careful not to just rush and dump sequels nowadays, thus the safety of building out the franchise on Disney+, which is why it's taken them so long to bake the next Star Wars sequels, which makes the misfire here with Dial of Destiny so concerning. Okay, I can't take much more of this nonsense. He says Lucasfilm has been precious and fastidious in developing their Star Wars properties. This guy has no idea what he is talking about. Now let's go ahead and actually go into what is happening with this movie. So Box Office Pro actually had much higher numbers. So to give any credit whatsoever to Deadline, and I very much am very hesitant to do that, especially with the commentary they add to their articles and their coverage, they at least at Deadline said the film was expected to make $60 to $65 million. So they pretty much had that number. You actually look at these numbers coming out of Box Office Pro. Now, they seem to be lower than what they had been going into the weekend, but they said the film was going to make somewhere around $70.3 million over the 3-day, and then $94.4 million when you add in the entire total from the 5-day. Again, 5-day because 4th of July is going to be on a Tuesday this year. Now let's go ahead and actually look at what their range is, because this is very important. So the 3-day range that they have for Indiana Jones is $60 to $77 million. So what this is telling us then is whether it's the 60 to 65 that was being projected by Deadline or the 60 to 77 million that was being projected by Box Office Pro, this movie right now is trending towards the lowest end of both scales. And the fact that he even would mention there's a chance the film might only make $55 million, and we'll have much more idea and much more information about that once we get the box office numbers tomorrow. So stay tuned to the full box office breakdown for this weekend when those numbers do eventually come out. Disney has been notorious in the past of holding on to numbers, especially when they are not necessarily that good. So we'll have to see how long it will actually take. But the fact that they're talking about this at all in this capacity is already showing you that there's a lot of problems. If you go ahead and just make a little bit of a comparison here, all right, to comparing Indiana Jones and Crystal Skull to Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. Now, some people will look at this chart and will immediately try to point out, now, wait a minute, Crystal Skull's first Friday, that includes also any, early showings as well on the Thursday prior, $30 million versus $24 million. Well, hey, hot diggity, that's not too bad. That's not too terrible. That's not bad at all. Notice again that up to that point, they had also gotten to $55 million because they had a earlier release. But their first Friday, $30 million to $24 million, that's not all that bad. Even if you were to use the inflation calculator over at the numbers, oh, wait a minute, we get a bit of a different story here. $44 million opening day to $24 million opening day. Okay, that's quite a big jump, not to mention $80 million versus 24. Okay, we got those numbers in front of us. Well, I went ahead and actually did this during the Salty podcast stream from this morning. Go check out the Salty Saturday podcast if you have not done so already. Salty Nerd podcast is a great channel, and I'm always very, very thankful that they have me on. But this is actually something I was working on while we were doing the show. They were talking about Star Trek. I'm not really into modern day Trek in any way whatsoever, so I took the time to be a little bit productive. All right, so remember that number, right, for their opening day? Well, here's the opening weekend, all right? Unadjusted, the opening weekend for Crystal Skull was around $100 million. All right, that was the opening weekend that was being reported over on thenumbers.com. When you adjust that for inflation, because that was back in 2008, the opening weekend actually was $144 million. Actually, on paper, the biggest opening of the entire franchise. Now some people might be saying, now wait a minute. That might be correct on paper, but surely the other films are going to have to also be taken into account. Now, here's the big thing. You back to 2008, and you'll have to admit that there was a lot of theaters that would have been available. One thing I love about the movie comparison site of the numbers is look at the differences in theaters, right? Dial of Destiny had 4,600 screens opening. Crystal Skull had 4,200 screens opening. Compare that to how many screens were available for the original, the actual trilogy of Indiana Jones movies. 2,300 back in 1989, 1,600 and only 1,000 screens for the opening weekend of Raiders. So we can absolutely point to this and say, okay, wait a minute. Now when we go back to these ticket sales, all right, 2 million tickets opening weekend for Raiders, 7 million tickets opening weekend for Temple of Doom, 9 million. This makes a little bit more sense because even when you jump to Kingdom of Crystal Skull, the fact that Crystal Skull had almost twice the theaters and did not really make twice the amount of money comparatively to these other movies just goes ahead and show you, right, how successful those other films actually were, right? Especially if you were to take the entirety of their run. But the interesting thing is this. The opening weekend for Crystal Skull, right? The last of the non-existent films, right? $144 million opening weekend, around 13.9 million tickets on average. So again, average ticket price back in 2008 was $7.18, and that's where we get this average around 14 million tickets. If the number holds, all right, remember, they're projecting a $60 million opening, all right? By opening weekend, it just means the opening weekend, not the days following it. If that indeed continues to hold, guess what? That means that at $60 million, and the fact that the average ticket price today is around $13, that's only 4.6 million tickets. That means that Dial of Destiny will have sold less tickets than every other single Indiana Jones movie, whether you think that they exist or not. The only film it beats is Raiders of the Lost Ark. But, again, huge caveat, Raiders, when adjusted for inflation, only cost $67 million, whereas Dial of Destiny cost a whopping $300 million. And as I mentioned, you have in Dial of Destiny over 4,000 screens, 4,600 screens, in fact, that it has available to it, whereas Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981, only 1,000. So even though technically Dial of Destiny sold on average more tickets than Raiders of the Lost Ark, we know that those numbers are not exactly perfect. Because we know that because of the available ticket sales, because of the available theater spaces, those 1,000 screens would have been packed. Whereas the significantly higher number of screens for Dial of Destiny, not nearly as packed. A lot less people in them. Now remember, going into the weekend, Deadline was reporting that they suspected the film would make somewhere around $140 million worldwide. Now, we don't have an update yet in their international numbers. Let's go ahead and see if that article, remember how I've had issues finding those articles from the international side of things before? Because they seem to want to hide them, or they seem to want to, I guess not push them to the front as much. But this was the article from Tony and Nancy over on Deadline. Again, they were saying $140 million. So let's say it does that. Remember, most films tend to, on average, right, the average, comparatively worldwide to the entirety of a film's run, opening weekend accounts for about roughly a third of the entire box office. Again, that's been the average. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. That means that this film, as of right now, before we have the international numbers, has a chance of getting somewhere between $400 and $500 million. Now, that's only if it hits 140, and that's only if it hits an average drop, right? If it only has an average performance at the box office. If we see massive drops, it becomes a lot less than that $400 to $500 million range. But let's go ahead and say, 400 to 500. Let's say, okay, well, let's give it that, right? Let's try to be fair. Oh, wait a minute. At $300 million, the break-even point for this movie is somewhere between $750 and $900 million. All right, depending on what metrics you use, depending on what methodology you use as far as a break-even point. I use 2.5 times the budget personally. Others use 3 times the budget. So to show you both of those, $750 to $900 million. If this movie is only going to make $400 to $500 million, guess what? That ain't $750 million. That ain't $900 million. In fact, let's go ahead and see if we can put this in right now. All right, so $400 million. What would that actually mean? What would that actually mean in profits? Let's see if we can figure that out. So at $400 million, let's see. That would be a loss of about $210 million. Let's see. That would be, of course, using the 2.5 times multiplier. Using the other one, you're looking at $270 million. So this movie, right now, all right, most likely scenario is going to lose somewhere between $210 and $270 million when everything is said and done. Best case scenario at this point, and again, this is a bit of a stretch because I don't think the movie is necessarily going to reach the 140 worldwide, or that it'll have a typical average drop from week to week, especially in the midst of a lot of competition coming its way very, very soon. But let's say best case scenario, $150 million loss. When your best case scenario is $150 million loss, you got a lot of problems. So what I suspect is going to happen, what do I think is actually going to happen from this? I think we're looking at this movie losing probably around $200 million. At least. Minimum. And when you take into account the fact that Elemental is set to lose $200 plus million, that Little Mermaid is set to lose over $100 million, and that every other film, Peter Pan and Wendy, by the way, we talked about this on, I believe this was the Good Morning Asgard podcast, or it was the last evening stream. People forgot about this. When Peter and Wendy on Disney Plus, that film cost $170 million and it went straight to Disney Plus. There's no returns on that. But even just the ones that they got theatrical releases. I mean, again, major franchise movies, 150, 200, 75, 250. I mean, we're talking some of the biggest box office flops of the entire year. This isn't even bringing up the fact that you have a film in a movie like The Flash, which, again, based on the numbers that we are seeing, is also going to be about a $200 to $250 million flop, depending on the numbers that you use. Needless to say, what does that mean? Disney is in a crap ton of trouble. And when you're looking at these numbers and when you're looking at people like Tony over at Deadline trying to argue that somehow this isn't all that bad, ooh, it's crazy. See, Abomination. Raiders apparently also made 18.4 times its production budget. Yeah, exactly. Like, again, the numbers that I was showing you for ticket sales, that was just opening weekend. That was just opening weekend. So the fact that you look at the entirety of what Raiders Lost Ark made over the course of its run comparatively to its budget, oh yeah, I mean, keep in mind, like, let's go ahead and bring that chart back up, in fact, before moving on from this, going back into the chat. Right, so I was just talking about, opening weekend. Again, why? Because opening weekend can give us a bit of an insight into what a film will do over the course of its run. It's funny how many comments I've had since my video dropped on Thursday, where I was talking about how this film is likely going to be a massive flop. And they were like, how can you even know that? Okay, the movie hasn't even come out. Because we have projections, and usually films are not that far off from projections. And so if we're going to take the numbers that they're giving us at their word, guess what? We have decades and decades of films getting released. We can say, hey, these are other films that got released that got a very similar amount of money in its opening weekend. How did that film perform? Where did that film end up? Right? We can use historical trends and we can use historical standards to be able to work these things out. So that's how we're able to do that. But going back again to Raiders of the Lost Ark, yeah, you're right. This film, Raiders, adjusted for inflation, this is using the calculations of the numbers, which is not the most up-to-date, but still, I think, very important. $1.3 billion by the end of its run. Worldwide box office. Now, I don't know if this is every single release it's had, or if this is the original release of the movie. That's one thing that they don't distinguish between. I don't like using Box Office Mojo typically because it's been very, very trash ever since IMDb took over. But let's go ahead and see if we can actually pull that up because that does sometimes help. Raiders of the Lost. We like to do stuff live here on OMB Reviews and make things more fun. The only thing really that this movie has, or rather, sorry, that Box Office Mojo has is this little thing right here. You can set it to original release. So according to Box Office Mojo, it actually didn't get an international release back in 1981, according to this. Now let's see. It says 1982 re-release. Okay. And then we can go with 83. Interesting that it got a re-release 3 years in a row, it looks like. But it also looks like we don't actually have... That's interesting. So Box Office Pro, for some reason, only has a certain amount of money that's being reported for them. And again, this is the reason why Box Office Mojo, I have issues with because their entire site has become very problematic. But again, I cannot confirm whether or not this is every single release that they've had, or whether this is their... Again, it seems based on Box Office Mojo's numbers, there was not an initial international release. Hard for me to say. Fact, though, is this movie has made over $1 billion, $1.3 billion over the course of its entire run. Temple of Doom, over $1 billion. Last Crusade, $1.2 billion. Even Crystal Skull. And again, that was a pretty big opening weekend, as I showed y'all earlier. Still made over $1 billion. This movie right now, based on the numbers that we have in front of us, if this movie is going to only get to $400 to $500 million, that is not only the worst performing Indiana Jones movie, that's the worst by a country mile. I mean, we're talking about a movie that's going to make not even half of what these other films have done. Danger, 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 Will Robinson. So again, I can understand why the rumors are going now, once again, because these rumors happen all the time, of Kathleen Kennedy's demise. Because again, anyone else this happens to, they should be gone. They should have been fired a long time ago. However, at this point in time, we have just not seen it. All right, let's go ahead and head back into the chat and see what y'all have been saying. But yeah, Abomination, again, 18.4 times the budget is what Raiders made, so clearly made its money back by quite a bit. You know, even Crystal Skull, as terrible as that movie was, made 4.3 times its budget. We're not going to see that happen for this movie. He then goes on to say, yes, the number shows multiple releases. That's what I thought. The box office tab shows week 1631 through 1634, which would have been around 2012. Yeah. So that's why I say, you know, we can't look at the numbers directly from the initial full release for Raiders on the numbers site. You know, Box Office Mojo usually has that, but again, based on what it was looking like, it almost looked as if they don't count any international sales, or that there somehow aren't any international sales to account for in the initial release. And again, that could be the case. I don't have the mind or the brain right now to try to find out that information directly. We like to do things live, but also within reason. All right, let's see. Heading back into the YouTube chat. Let's see. King Kane Rumsky tagged to say, if someone was giving you a free steelbook of The Flash or Indy 5, which one would you take? Oh, gosh. It's free, so I think I would probably take The Flash, only because I think it would make a better coaster. Because, let's be honest, there's a higher chance that Ezra Miller's face will be on the front of the Flash steelbook, so having my drink on that as a coaster would be much better. Whereas I don't necessarily want to have, which again, much more likely to have Harrison Ford's face on the Indy 5 steelbook. You know, I have issues with the fact that he took on this role, even back in 2008 when he took on the role and things like that. But I don't have nearly as much distrust for him as I do for Ezra Miller. So that's where I get that decision from. That's where my logic comes from there. Let's see if there's any other tags over there. No other tags. So again, just put @Odin at the very beginning of your comment on any of the platforms if you have a comment or question that you want me to read aloud. Otherwise, it gets lost in the noise. All right, the Morak in the chat, what's going on? Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Let me see, make sure I didn't miss anybody from earlier. It's 7 o'clock in the chat. It's 7:42 in real life. I'm actually 40 minutes behind, so do be patient. Do be patient. Let us see. Dial of Dysentery, as Father Christopher Miller says. Great Wood attack to say Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is still a great film title. No, it's not. It is, again, Dead Reckoning is great, but the entirety of it is such a mouthful. It's crazy. Crazy, crazy. Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, how about a hockey player? What's going on here in the Steadfast in the chat? G-Monkey76 as well. Laura, the Monomator General, Shorty Sort. I'm afraid that Dune Part 2 might flop, especially if people can just watch it on Max a few weeks later. Yeah, Warner Brothers, the biggest problem that Dune Part 2 has going for it right now is the fact that it's a Warner Brothers release. I'm someone that enjoyed Dune Part 1. I love the work of Denis Villeneuve. I am looking forward. I plan to see opening day Dune Part 2. However, the trailer that came out, I don't think is enough to bring in other people that aren't already aware of it. I just don't think it's going to have that. And even though, to their credit, rather more so to the credit of Denis Villeneuve and the people he's working with, the fact that they took a cut in their production cost for Part 2 because the first movie didn't make money, the fact that they were able to take a cut in their production cost for Part 2 and still make a movie that still looks great. I mean, the trailer, if anything, the visuals look pretty good still. So the fact that they're able to do that for less money is impressive. That being said, the film would still need to make quite a bit of money. All right, the film would still need to make quite a bit, because I think the box office or the production budget's going to be around 125. So the film would still need to make between $300 and $400 million worldwide to break even. It's possible the first movie was able to at least get within that range if memory serves, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm afraid that it could lose money too. I wouldn't want to see that. But again, I still also would say I hope the movie's good. Movie's got to be good before anything else. Zine Waters, what's up, Zine? I thought Elemental was cute, but that was about it. Kind of bland. I saw it as a double feature with Across the Spider-Verse, which I thought was good, but had pacing issues. Yeah, absolutely. Spider-Verse is, I think, a strong film in certain respects, but it's not perfect. I think some people kind of praise it way too much and give it way too much credit. I think the first film is a better story, though there are still elements of the second film that I enjoy. I also thought the animation was better in the second film than the first film. The first film, stop motion animation style, really, like, it was, where it looks like you're looking at something at like 20 frames per second. I just hated that. That wasn't as impactful or wasn't as prevalent in the second one. So, but the issue that I had, and again, someone in the comment section apparently confirmed it, that when they initially released the movie, there were issues with the sound. Like in the actual copy they released, there were sound issues. And I remember when I saw it, I thought, oh man, there's something not going right with this sound. The sound is not very loud. What's going on here? So to find out that that's the studio's fault, that actually kind of, in my opinion, puts something against the movie, because a movie is visuals and sound. And if you release an incomplete or a flawed movie, I got problems with that. Jenna Wingster says, Odin. So Odin, now we can go back to ignoring... Sure. Carl, what's up? Amber's Chamberpot, what's up? Forever Sci-Fi, who is a member, says that blasphemy in that Adena church with the Sparkle Creed was on a completely different level to crazy to what we usually talk about. Oh, for sure. If you don't know what we're talking about, just look up the Sparkle Creed. It's one of the most cringe things ever. And yeah, it's one of the many reasons why I have the faith that I have. And why the liturgy that I attend is the liturgy that I attend. Because it has a guarantee against that kind of nonsense. Jenna Wingster is a member. I'll take a worse but memorable movie over a competent but boring one. Exactly, Jenna Wingster. That's exactly where I am with it too. That's why if I had to choose between watching Crystal Skull or Dial of Destiny again, I would take Crystal Skull any day of the week, because at least there's such stupid stuff in there that I could laugh. Father Miller says, you forgot the rule, don't swear. Yes. Well, I think that I may not have highlighted it, because usually my boy Orange Hat's good with that kind of stuff, getting all the rules out there. Anyway, we got 174 people watching. Oh my goodness, 174 people. Welcome. Smash the like button on YouTube, wherever it is that you're watching. You guys are freaking amazing. Osmodeus in the chat, what's going on? Thank you very much for being here. And again, I'm still at 7:05 in the chat, so that's probably why I saw that so early on. Abomination, there's a rule for that? Again, by that, what we mean is no like hard cursing. Like if you're dropping F-bombs every 5 seconds, again, we try to keep things family friendly. We try and keep things, family friendly here. PG-13. Try and think of PG-13. There are some occasions where it can be acceptable, but discouraged. Let's see. Laura says, Crystal Skull. Never will understand why people think ancient humans are so dumb they had to be taught basic things like farming. Yeah, that stuff never makes sense to me either. I know it's got a place for some people, but I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Laura then says, my favorite indie movies are 1, 3, 2, 4, not seeing 5. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm only going to have 3 movies in the ranking, and my favorite film still is Last Crusade because of the religious elements in there, then Raiders because it's phenomenal, and then Temple of Doom. So, Mike Jackson, what is going on? Jonah Wingster, Odin is the German here. I need to raise my hand in respect. Oh no, General Wingster, come on. He's Croatian, all right? Shout out to Father Luca. I don't think he is, because he is in another part of the world right now. Keck44, what's going on? Welcome. For Sci-Fi, that 4K Princess Bride cover coming out in September looks great. It does, and I plan on pre-ordering that as soon as I can. I will definitely be pre-ordering several copies to have in future giveaways. Zion is indeed a Chosen of Valhalla member now. Jeremy Sikowski tags say, there are a lot of people believe Little Mermaid had to make $500 million to break even, and they link Deadline as their source. I'm surprised they didn't link Collider, because I think Collider also posted similar nonsense. I mean, that movie had to make a crap ton of money to break even, and it's not going to do it. Granted, the film's domestic numbers and domestic holds have been better than maybe what some had expected, especially comparing it to its international run. It's still not going to get anywhere near where it needs to. And that's why, again, when Little Mermaid's box office flop becomes impressive comparatively, when you look at films like The Flash or Dial of Destiny or anything else like it, it's a bad position to be in. Matt R., what's up? General Wingster, you will accept Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny as canon, like the sequel trilogy, and you will love it. No. Never gonna happen. How dare you? Soul Assassin, what's up? Dragon Bricks X in the chat. Hail to you. Father says, just DM'd you the details. I could use your prayers for... Absolutely, Father. Absolutely. I assume that means it's not one of the typical situations. So, obviously, prayers will be sent. Let us see. Forever Sci-Fi is a member. All these movies failing this year is like getting a Waterworld every few weeks. Costner must be relieved. Yeah, it also, when you think about Disney, it kind of brings an entirely new light to the conversation around the film John Carter. I forgot what channel or where I heard that, but someone mentioned John Carter when talking about the box office, saying, like, it kind of makes you long for the John Carter days of the box office flop, doesn't it? I mean, don't get me wrong, John Carter is still definitely one of the biggest of the box office flops, but at least that film made 1.1 times its budget. Whereas these other films probably won't. Yeah, that production budget, again, it's still bad. $263.7 million opening. Of a $263.7 million budget for John Carter. So don't get me wrong, that film cost a crap ton. And that was back in 2012. So that means that film was probably in today's dollars 300 to 350 million in its budget. But I do think that film did much better on post-theatrical than any of these current movies are, not to mention the amount of financial losses that we're talking about here. I might actually have to try to pull that into a chart one day to see how much money have these films lost in comparison to John Carter. Nick Braun in the chat, what's going on? Zine Waters, why do you think Warner Brothers released Flash with how bad it is? Do you think they honestly thought it was good? That's really the difficult question, right? I hear some people making the excuse for the likes of the Warner Brothers executives and for James Gunn as well. Like, well, he has to say the film's good because he's got to promote it. It's like, yeah, but he said it was the best DC film that he's ever seen, right? He was talking about it in such exclamatory terms. It's at that point either he's delusional or he's lying to such a degree that he is not worthy of being trusted, So I don't know. I don't honestly know why they would release a film like that. I mean, even within just the first 10 minutes, when you get to the scene with the babies, with the gosh awful CGI babies, there's no way for you to excuse that. Like, it was, for me, I honestly believe that it was offensively bad. Like, the beginning portion especially was offensively bad. Yeah, Victor Fontaine. Yeah, and for the record, I actually like John Carter. I don't think John Carter's bad. I was talking about it specifically from a box office standpoint as being a failure and being a flop. I actually looked at it. I'm like, I went in thinking this was going to be some of the biggest trash ever. You know what? Those visual effects, for that time especially, didn't look that terrible. And overall, I enjoyed the lead actor in the film. It's fine. It's sad that Disney had its hands on it, and it's sad that Disney didn't believe in it whatsoever. But hey, JS Pena, what's going on? Dragon Bricks, I did not know you are a DS9 fan. I see a DS9 to the side picture of Mary on your background. Yes, so I've got the icon of Our Lady of Fatima, which is right there. And then I also, of course, have DS9 itself. I think Bruce, I always forget who sent me which thing, but Bruce, I believe, sent me that model. It was either Bruce or it was Laura. I shout them both out because they send me stuff, and it's always amazing. That one actually I think was Laura. I think I've made this mistake before. Bruce has sent me actual other vehicles and other models from the show that I have in my old office. But yeah, DS9 is pretty much the only Trek I have any distinct knowledge of. I watched the entire series last summer. It was great. Currently working my way through Babylon 5 at the moment. All right, let's see. Orange Chat, who is a member, says, most digital releases go for $19.99 upon new release. The Flash is going for $24.99 to try to make up a little more. Even I won't touch The Flash on digital. Yeah, I mean, it's always a question of what is it exactly that leads to a certain film costing more than another. You know, why would it cost as much as it does? Why would it cost that much more? And it very well could be financial for that reason. I just don't know off the top of my head because I do feel there have been those differences. There have been those changes before where certain films get paid a little bit more. Reed, by the way, I have not forgotten. Thank you again. Oh, sorry. I did forget. And there's another comment. I'm sorry. Reed, let me go ahead and highlight that once again. Reed, thank you for the $10 donation via Streamlabs. Says all we can do is spend our money on what we want than what others tell us to. There are just too many people who want us to be something artificial. Glad to see you, Odin. Glad to see you as well, Reed. And again, apologies for the delay on that. A lot of people here today, a lot of stuff going on. So, Reed, thank you very much. And you're totally right. Absolutely. All we can do is spend our money on the things that we want to see and hope that other people are able to see the same garbage that we are too, you know? And then Reed recently sent another $20 donation via Streamlabs. Thank you again with a quote. Charity is injurious unless it helps the recipient to become independent of it. J.D. Rockefeller. Somehow, I cannot see Hollywood expecting us to spend our money for their failures would cause them to become competent. Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point, right? Is how can Hollywood expect us to continue to spend money in mass, in groups, right? And I know that some people will say, you know, why do you keep watching this stuff? Why do you keep watching it? Because here's the problem. Many of us, especially those of us in the Asgardian community, in the Fellowship, right, and all of these other communities that exist, we know this stuff's going on. We've been knowing this stuff's been going on for a long, long time, right? We're aware. But there are still a lot of people who are not. And I mean, even though those numbers are bad, $60 million is still going towards Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny this weekend. Worldwide, the estimate was around 140. We'll see what those numbers are tomorrow, but still, there's a lot of people out there that are still, millions of people, millions of tickets are still going to be sold and still going to be bought by people who don't know. And that's why people like us who cover this stuff, whether from the financial standpoint like I do, whether from more of a cultural, canonical standpoint, like someone like Gary or Nerdrotic would cover, it's so important for any of these things to exist because if they can go online and before a movie comes out or as a movie comes out, to have someone there to try and, you know, here's how it is, here's what's really going on. Hopefully you can actually see what's going on. That chips away slowly over time. You know, slowly over time, that does chip away at these movies, these studios thinking that they can just put a title on something, mindlessly market it, and then expect that to make money, right? That's what Marvel's now been doing, especially for a long time. And guess what? I think it's because, especially like people, if I had to put, you know, as far as like the biggest name and the biggest influence, I would have to say Critical Drinker more so than anyone else has had a major influence because you even have had Chad Stahelski, who directed John Wick. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast, the biggest podcast in the world, really, right? And he mentions Critical Drinker by name as someone that he watches, right? We know that people in Hollywood watch people like Critical Drinker. And so if someone like that can have the reach to be able to bring people and make people aware of things that they had not been aware of before, to me, that makes it worth it. The little money that they might get right now from us, I think overall is almost an investment in people waking up to in larger amounts of, again, I'm a small part of that. I'm such a small, insignificant part of that. But even if I just reach one person, that's one less person giving their hard-earned money to a giant corporation that is just going to crap on them. and to crap on their fandom and to crap on these IPs that for many people mean so many different things. Thank you all again for hanging out. Let's see. Over on Rumble, let's see. See if I can find any tags. King and Rumsky tagged to say, is Kathleen Kennedy working at Disney Lucasfilm next year at this time? Personally, I would say probably. And it comes down to the fact that even though she's terrible at her job, she clearly is powerful. Anyone else, any of us who have done the same crap that she's done, that have made the same financial mistakes for the amount of money that she has made, any of us would have been fired because we're regular everyday people. She clearly has connections. She's clearly powerful. She's clearly even friends, right, with these people. And this kind of makes sense, I think, to some of us. You know how certain industries we know you only can do well if you've got connections, right? If you have all of those, if you are able to have kind of like this self-marketing, right? Where you are able to reach out. I'm trying to think, there's a word for it that I'm blanking on at the moment, but networking, right? It's all about networking. Some of these places, some of these occupations, it's all about networking. Acting is a great example of that, right? I mean, there are a billion, exaggeration, but there are a billion of talented actors and actresses that will never be seen on screen, that will never be given a major role. And it's not because they are any less talented than the people that do. It's just that the people that do were either in the right place at the right time, or they knew somebody, or they had, because of their networking, they were able to get the deals and they were able to get the roles and they were able to get the auditions at the time that they were able to get. I think the same thing is also true when it comes to these executives. Yes, a lot of it is run by money, but a lot of it's also run by friendships. You don't get to become someone like Kathleen Kennedy with no talent to speak of, and to hold on to a role that she's been holding on to now for years without having very, very powerful friends. And without herself being very, very powerful. So for me personally, I think she will be. I hope she's not. I would love for us to find out like in 2 seconds that she gets fired. But it's just not going to happen. And I say that only because we have been told it's going to happen since 2017, maybe even earlier. Almost every single year, maybe every 6 months, we get word she's getting fired this time. It's real this time. It's real this time. And I'm tired of it. Until she's actually gone, it's not going to happen. Star Goose over on Rumble says, it's almost like the studios are playing Biggest Loser at the box office this year. It is. There are so many, right? There are just so many major box office losses this year. This is, I think, one of the worst summers on record when it comes to these big budget flops, because I talked about this on the Salty Saturday podcast this morning, but if you go back to April, and I know that's not too far ago, too far along, but there's been a lot of movies that have been released since the beginning of April. If you go back to the release of Evil Dead Rise, that and 2 other movies are the only films that have actually made their money back and made profit. So since the beginning of April, you've had Evil Dead Rise, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and what's the other one? Spider-Man, Spider-Verse. Those are the only 3 movies out of the plethora of films that have been released that have actually made their money back and have made profit. Every other film has either barely lost money because they were a lower budget movie that didn't get any attention, which is still a loss, or they were a major big budget flop. I mean, we're talking, I'll have to, at some point go through my box office projections chart and try to just copy and paste the 2023 movies as actual like financial gains and losses. Something tells me that the box office this year right now is probably looking at being overall, all studios, all movies combined together, hundreds of millions of dollars in losses. Again, I think it's one of the worst that we've ever seen. And even though I do think Dead Reckoning is going to be a breath of fresh air for the box office, and I think it's going to end up being one of the biggest box offices of the year, it still needs to be a good movie. Before that can ever be guaranteed, it still has to be a good film, and we don't know that yet. Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, who is a member, says, I have not seen the new Dune trailer, nor do I want to. I'm already pretty excited about seeing it. Yeah, I would say don't watch it. If you're already excited about it, you're not going to get really anything, I think, from it, personally. I know I'm excited for it, and the trailer didn't really move the needle any further for me. J.S. Pena tagged to say, I wasn't a huge fan of Mutt in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but I hated learning how they killed him off after hearing the leaks. Oh, yeah. I mean, and again, for anyone who cares about spoilers, I'm sorry, but I can't care for this movie. I really can't. It is probably the worst Indiana Jones movie ever. I think that that's a valid criticism. I don't think it's the worst movie, but I do think it's the worst of the Indiana Jones specifically as an Indiana Jones film. But yeah, I mean, the way they did that, and it's funny because I think it was even Critical Drinker's review, he breaks down the plot and says, wait a minute, where have we seen this before? It's almost beat for beat exactly what they did with Han Solo's character in a certain respect, you know? See, Zine Waters says, speaking of rumors of Kathleen Kennedy's firings, thoughts on Cameron Pasha. I really liked him, but he's kind of turned out to be a disappointment with all the rumors being too crazy. I mean, Cameron's been on this channel. I've interviewed him before. He's a good guy. I have not seen or talked to him probably in years at this point, so I don't know what he's been saying. So all I can speak of is the personal experience that I had with him when I did have him on the channel for an interview, and I thought his insights were really, really strong. I thought they were very, very good. But again, I don't know. Is he doing a lot of work with other channels that tend to be more clickbaity and tend to be more rumor mill garbage? I don't know. If that's the case, I feel bad because I think that, again, from the limited experience that I have with him, I thought he was solid, but I wouldn't know. B-Rad tried to say, it makes you wonder what it would take for her to get fired. I mean, seriously. The only thing, I've been saying this for a long time, the only thing that makes sense to me, based on how these power structures work, is they would have to have the shareholders actually start to demand and make changes, to actually demand to make changes and actually do something about it. I mean, I don't know how corporate structures work, but that's the only thing that makes sense to me. The people with the money would have to, in unison, do something about it. And I just don't know or think that that's going to happen. So let's see. General Wingster, I will always be your court jester forever. Yes. Keely Chow. Jerry Jones will step down as general manager of the Dallas Cowboys before Kathleen Kennedy is fired from Disney Lucasfilm. Thought he already did. Maybe I'm mistaken. McRib. Yeah, Crystal Skull is a bad movie, but it's my guilty pleasure. I kind of love it. But Dial Destiny was horrible. With exception of the opening 15-20 minutes, the movie was soulless and I hated it. And that's where I would actually extend that into the 15 to 20 minutes opening. Because I'm sorry, like the visual effects on Indy, though, if you look at a still image, it looks okay. In actual practice, in motion, there is no light behind those eyes. That's one of the biggest issues when it comes to doing these deep fakes, comes to this de-aging stuff, especially the way they did in this movie. There's no light, there is no soul behind those eyes. When you're doing a human character specifically, that uncanny valley, and it's not even the uncanny valley, it's just soulless, it's lifeless, because it's animation. It's animation trying to be human. Oh, man. Tim and M in the chat. What's going on? Welcome. Let's see, we got Bruce in the chat. Hail to you, Bruce. Thank you very much for being here. It's 7:18 in the chat. It's 8:07 in real life. Oh, my goodness. Am I almost an hour behind? This is crazy. Gary Banjo Sandwich. Indy was in his pants and was pants. What? 152 people watching still. Again, thank you all very much for choosing to be here. Hopefully you found this informative / entertaining. Killy Chow, I'm assuming that was talking about the dogs and not me. Definitely not me. Can't be me. Let's go ahead and go back over to the dog cam. There's River. She's still out. And there's Willow. She's still out too. So glad I was able to get those set up. Let's see, Brightburn over at 718. There are only 3 Indiana Jones films, but there's many, 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 many Indiana Jones video games. I've heard that. Keck44. KK's contract ends next year. She begins negotiations in August for an extension. Tubers report rumors as rumors. Yeah, and again, until that actually happens, until anything actually happens, I'm going to call bull. Luka, let's see, Pilipovic. Luka Pilipovic? Hopefully I've said that correctly. Luka, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Says, Kathleen Kennedy is totally going to get fired this time. Come on, everybody. I'm totally right this time. It's going to happen. Exactly, Luca, right? Trust me this time, okay? I've been wrong all the other times. I bring this up a lot. I remember when there was a YouTube channel, there was a guy who claimed that he had seen the contract. He knew as a fact that she was going to get fired because he saw the contract. He knew, and it was complete fake. It was completely false. It was a lie. But this is kind of where we are now. And I'm not saying anyone carrying rumors are liars. I'm not saying that at all. There's some good people covering some of this new stuff. And I feel like they are covering it in a way that's a lot more nuanced than some of the other, more clickbaity, rumor mill type places are. Again, there's people who can cover this stuff well and effectively, and there's others that are clearly doing it because they want to get clicks and everything like that. But yeah, I'm just tired of it altogether. That's why I'm not going to support any of the theories, even if it's people that I like and people that I would in general trust. Great Wuda, who's a member, says Raiders of the Lost Ark on the Atari 2600 is a hard game. Yeah, I never played any of the indie games before. Ambrose Chamberpot, what's going on? Welcome. General Wingster, Tony, go home. You're drunk. Seriously. Absolutely. Jason Ebenstein was here at 724. Forever Sci-Fi, who is a member. I knew Indy Jake was going to be silly when I saw that tuk-tuk chase scene in the trailer. Top Gear showed those things tip over on the slightest turn at speed. Yep. And it was also one of the most boring... the chase scene. One of the most boring parts of the entire film. Miss Minnesota Hockey fan, Fleabag, killer of franchises. She's definitely been a part of them. However, we do have to say this. To be fair, you look at a movie like James Bond, that film still made quite a bit of money. But at what cost? Just another red shirt who's a member. One reviewer on Twitter gave a glowing review and eventually ran away from the pushback. Not surprised. Master of Gaming, what's up? Fleabag is a dog infested with fleas, says Just another red shirt. Interesting that she wrote that show, I believe. She wrote to star in that. Master Game, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny will have a huge drop in its second weekend. No, really? You think? You think that's going to happen? It has to get out of its opening weekend at least somewhat intact. Joseph Oakes, welcome to the channel. Phil D, welcome to the channel. Let's see. Fox 1, welcome back. The Great Cornholio. I need TP for my bongo. I know that reference. I get that. Kronos Godwison, what's up? For Sci-Fi, who is a member. I thought Disney was done destroying franchises, but they still have Tron, Ares in the works with Jared Leto. Oof. I mean, I'm not a big Tron guy. I am not a huge fan of the original, and the remake had certain things in there that were fine. The CG, though, oh my gosh, the CG of young Kurt Russell or whoever was in it? I just, no, thank you. We'll do it live. Dang right. Victor Fontaine in the chat. Come fly with me. What's up? Yeah, let's see. Great Wuda member says Indiana Jones should have ended years ago. Yeah, it did end years ago. Let's be honest, Great Wuda. You go back, you rewatch Last Crusade. That's a perfect ending. Jeff Bridges, thank you. Someone in the live chat, Jeff Bridges. Other than that, I cared that little about it. I would have had no concept of who. Keely Chow says Crystal Skull was the true ending to the Indiana Jones movies. Oh, no, Keely Chow. No. The true ending is the Last Crusade. Last Crusade. I know that timeline-wise, it's a little bit different, but as far as the movies, Last Crusade is the last one. Pure and simple. Let's see. Over on Rumble, let's see if anyone has tagged. I don't think I see anyone who has tagged. Nebraska, because you have Critical Doggo Cam. Exactly. He was a huge inspiration to finally getting that up and running. And then Nebraska, because then says, Iger is just waiting for Catholic Kennedy to go to an Elton John concert. Oh, boy. I don't even quite understand what that reference means, but okay. Oh, man. Fox One, thanks for tagging. No message attached to it. Jason Evanstein at 743. So Haunted Mansion and the Marvels going to save Disney's box office this year. Am I right? Oh, yeah. The Marvels especially. Don't forget, Captain Marvel made $1 billion. Had nothing to do with the fact that it was the film right before Endgame. Thanatos Felicitas. When I heard of a movie called Dead Reckoning, I thought, great, just another pirate movie. Hey, there you go. Let's see. Brightburn85, what's up? So Joker 2, Folie à Deux, is the only DC film released next year. It'll be interesting to see how it does in 2024. Yeah, I mean, the first film did make $1 billion. It was rated R, did not get a China release, so that's still very, very impressive. And a musical version of Joker, I'm that in and of itself does not sell me. It depends on how they do it, though. All the people that are behind that project, if anyone could pull it off, it's them. But let's just say I don't have high hopes. Let's just say I don't have high hopes in it. However, it's probably a good thing for that to be the only thing coming from DC. Warner Brothers, in all honesty, should probably take a break in general. Miss Mon Muse is welcome. Thank you for the rose. Appreciate that. The super sticker. Always a pleasure. It's 7:48 in the chat, 8:15 in real life, so I'm catching up, but still behind. Grandmaster Yoda, Dead Reckoning have but same budget as Dial of Destiny, but given how much Tom love and makes fans happy, I think a flop is low risk at the moment. A little broken up there, Grandmaster Yoda, but I think I get the general understanding. Yeah, that the budgets are somewhat similar between, well, I think Dial of Destiny at $300 million. What was the other one at? I think it was, $290 million is what was being reported for the next Mission Impossible movie. Let me go ahead and look that up real quick. See if the numbers has that data. But in concept, in practice, I would agree. Yeah, $290 million is what's being reported. So yeah, that's pretty massive. It's essentially $300 million. So I mean, Dead Reckoning has to make, and keep this in mind, all right, 2.5 to 3 times the budget. That film needs to make almost $850 to $900 million just to break even. I mean, that's where you're getting to the territory of that movie. And this goes also for Dial of Destiny. You have to make almost $1 billion really to break even and to have any talk of any meaningful profit. If any film could do it, it's Dead Reckoning. Let's just say I would much rather be in the Tom Cruise camp right now rather than any other studio at this point. General Wingster, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Father Miller says, so for keeping it PG-13, does that mean only one F-bomb per stream or per watcher? Anyway, let's see. Oh, man. Zion Waters says, I know the indie fridge scene gets flack, but a few things excuse it. 50s fridges locked and were lead-lined. Indy would have broken all his bones, though. Still, number 2 had a raft drop from a plane. Yeah, again, I don't necessarily think that's the best argument for it, but Ron Priester, what's going on? Well, we got hit by weather earlier, so I don't know if we're still getting hit by more weather or not. Zion Waters, Sahara was the first film where I was introduced to budget versus box office and why a film flops and doesn't get a sequel. I like that film, but it lost tons of money. Jason Epstein tagged to say, they released The Flash and a lot of other movies as a tax write-off. That's just the thing, though. How many hundreds of millions of dollars can you have as a tax write-off? That's an honest question. It can't be an unlimited number. I hear that all the time, but it's like, how much money can you write off? But before you start to just be completely admitting to committing some type of fraud. Kronos Godwisen, welcome. Don't remember if I had said hello to you or not. Charles Akawaga, what's going on, Charles? Happy new month. Will Mario be beaten this year? It almost looks as Mario might not be beaten even in 2024. In 2024, I haven't looked at the films yet, so I wouldn't go that far. Right now, as of right now, the only film I think that has any chance of beating Mario is Dead Reckoning Part 1. Doesn't mean it will, but it has the best chance based on the fact that the Mission Impossible films have just been increasing in popularity, the fact that you also have Tom Cruise, who's become really the only star, it seems, that can move the needle one way or the other. He still has to be in a good movie. We can go back and think about the remake of The Mummy, for instance, and say, okay, yeah, he doesn't automatically bring in, guaranteed money, at least in a huge way to make up for massive budgets like this. But we also have him in his first $1 billion project last year in Top Gun Maverick, which was a huge hit. There's definitely a lot of Maverick feels to the stunts that they're showing in this movie. I think they've been marketing it just right. And as long as the movie's good, right, that good word of mouth is going to be huge. If it's able to do that, it has a chance. If not, Mario will definitely be the leader. No other film has a chance, I think. Forever Sci-Fi, I think that's what really coming through. I think what's really coming through is who sees people as customers versus who sees people as consumers. Yeah. Or at the very least, who is overt. I mean, because all studios are woke. All studios are political, right? It's just that when it comes to Disney, Warner Brothers, they're a lot more overt in their disdain for their fans, whereas the others are not nearly as clear. So, Strugan, what's going on? B is for Boomer in the chat. James Way in the chat as well. Forever Sci-Fi's a member. Networking like Harvey Weinstein was doing. Oh, boy. We have a mention of a yeah, Victor Fontaine. I literally just looked at my chart earlier and noticed I was the very bottom of the chart when I was looking at my screen had Evil Dead Rise, and then I just saw All Red and then 2 other films. So yeah, I haven't done like an official look at that, but that would not surprise me if you actually looked at it, the number of flops versus, let's just be honest, the number of flops versus the number of the films that made money this year, not even close. So many more flops. Got a bunch of super chats coming in. I'll be getting to those in a second. Thank you all again for being here. Smash like. Light out the fire. We didn't start the fire. Doobie 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 doobie. You're welcome for that, by the way. All right. Back into the YouTube chat. Let's see, 8:21. So getting close to the end of the stream. For Sci-Fi, at this point, we'll get confirmation of aliens from the government before we see Kathleen Kennedy fired. I'm not much of a betting man for various reasons, Mario being one of them. But in general, yes, I would agree that probably would be a better bet. Let's see. Forever Sci-Fi says, so was that part about Indy wanting to die in the past a troll of the fans who say it ended at Last Crusade? Hey, you know what? I wouldn't put it past them. It was to me, it seemed out of character when he started crying in the past, like essentially crying in the past, like, just let me die, just let me stay. But then it also led to an incredibly weak performance from Phoebe Waller-Bridge because she was trying to show emotion and she was failing miserably. And then that, of course, led to the punch heard around the world, which that to me was the key, right? That Phoebe Waller-Bridge was representing Kathleen Kennedy, the entire Lucasfilm team, everyone behind this project and all the projects that they've been, destroying for years now at this point. That was them trying, again, Indiana Jones represented one of the last, IPs that had not been completely trashed. Let's be honest. I think some people, when they say that, are not nearly remembering how bad Crystal Skull was. That being said, this to me was definitely that end point, right? Of just, we're going to punch you in the face. So dumb, but also symbolic, I think. Dragon Bricks, the Elton John concert was when Chapek, previous CEO, was fired by Disney. Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you for the context. Jason Evanstein, Chapek was fired while at an Elton John concert. Okay, I gotcha. I got news for you. King Rumsky over on Rumble says, this feels like this may be the biggest cast of the year for you. Yeah, if you're talking, so on Rumble, this is definitely the most names I've ever seen on Rumble, for sure. So again, shout out to the Rumble fam for hanging out. Odyssey's about the same and being Abominations. Always my trooper over there, holding things down. Always great to see him. For YouTube, this might be, I think, one of the biggest that we've had so far this year. Down to 137, but I think we peaked around 160 to 170. I think the channel has had bigger streams before, but definitely in a while. So this has been great, and I hope that some of y'all got something out of the talk of the box office. But, once again, if for anyone that may have missed it earlier on, these numbers are quite abysmal for Dial of Destiny. And don't worry, we're going to get to the last comments before we end anything. But again, average. Again, this is just an estimate. If the movie makes $60 million domestically this weekend, that's 4.6 million tickets based on an average ticket price of $13. And remember, a lot of these movies in their opening weekends, that average ticket price is probably higher. Because it seems most people are going to see these films in the bigger formatted screens, which automatically raises the price, which means it's even less people. So, but that 4.6 million average is the worst in the entire Indiana Jones franchise. And even though on paper, Raiders had 2.9 million tickets opening weekend, remember, Raiders only had 1,000 screens opening weekend versus the 4,600 screens had by Dial of Destiny. So we're talking about full theaters for Raiders, empty theaters for Dial of Destiny. That, I think, is a very important factor to mention. Zine Waters tagged to say, do you think that Black Widow would have made more sense between Infinity War and Endgame? I think both narratively and honor to the character. Why see a movie about her after she's dead? Well, the after she's dead thing was already just the dumbest thing they could have done. But that movie should have been made even earlier. I mean, people were asking, or at least interested in a Black Widow movie towards the beginning of the MCU, right? But towards the very beginning, that was a concept people had interest in. Over time, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, it hasn't happened yet. Okay, now it's a little bit less of an interest. So to say that would have been better, anything would be better than after her death. But I think even before, well before Infinity War would have been better. And had they released, let me just put it this way. For anyone who still has it in their head that Brie Larson and Captain Marvel was an amazing box office feat, you could have probably still taken the exact same film in Black Widow, released it back then, gone back in time, used the Dial of Destiny to somehow not go back to the time of Archimedes, which again, that whole plot point is silly, but you could have had it instead going back and releasing the film then, and it probably would have still made $1 billion because it came out March, like 2 months literally, or a month and a half right before the biggest movie in the entire MCU of Endgame, even though the movie sucked, for the record, still the biggest movie by far. And I still think that film would have had a better chance of making $1 billion. For sci-fi, the funny thing that Tron Legacy had practical suits, and the new one will probably use CGI and make them look worse. Yep. Zine Waters, I find the love of Mission Impossible films interesting, considering if the first film came out now, we'd excoriate it for ruining the protagonist from the original TV series. Oh, yeah. And again, I think that it is an interesting point, and essentially it comes down to this. The changes that you make to a character or to source material, is it being done in a respectful way or not? I think that many people can look to, for instance, many of the early MCU movies, many of them did change some of the source material, right? But they did it in a way where it was still being respectful. It was taking things in a different direction. And I think that is the key, is even if you do, changing the source material in and of itself is not a terrible thing. I think it's been Tina, shout out to Tina, Empress of the Universe, who always would mention that the book of, the book of The Godfather versus the movie, and that she believed that the movie is significantly better even though the book is different in certain ways. So it can happen, right? There are moments and times when things are changed, and sometimes they're actually changed for the better, or they're changed to a net positive. But it only happens if you are doing something competently and if you are doing something that is at the very least respectful of the source material, or at least inoffensive. Dragon Bricks tags say, curious if that budget for Dead Reckoning was for both parts combined. I thought both 1 and 2 were shot at the same time. Even if 2 movies are shot around the same time, if they are reporting a budget, that's a budget for that specific movie. So basically, it's not going to be until part 2 comes out and they report that budget that one could even make that point or even argue that point. But if you're going to specifically say this movie cost X, or if that's going to be what's reported, it is specific to that movie. Because even if you're filming 2 things at the same time, guess what? That's still 2 different movies, 2 different projects, 2 different contracts. So think of it in that way, right? That it logically would have to be individual because it is still a different movie. Still, you might have the same people or very, very similar people, but ultimately, an actor is not going to get paid once for filming 2 movies at the same time. They're going to be paid for both projects, right? And so that means the budget is going to be, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. Jason Evanstein, it isn't fraud when they're still losing hundreds of millions of dollars, just learns the losses. Marvin the Martian, I say, you can write off a lot if 10% goes to the big guy. Oh, I love it. All right, Crunchy Beaver. Who is that? Is that Nort from, I forget the exact character name, from Angry Beavers? Angry Beavers. Great. Crunchy Beaver, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, keep doing the Lord's work, sir. We're all better for you being in this space. I'm a box office geek. I used to get the newspaper every Friday, pre-internet, when I was a teenager to keep track of it. Dude, that's awesome, man. I wish that I had been back. I have been into the box office before I was covering it online, when I took an intro to radio class during my years in college, so probably back in 2009, 2010. I took an intro to radio class, oddly enough, and was introduced to Box Office Mojo. And this was prior to it being bought out by IMDb, Amazon, when it was great. And I remember even then, even though I was not huge into box office numbers, was very drawn by this site. I liked the way it was designed. I thought that it was interesting. It was compelling. And so when I eventually came into the space, I remembered that site and was like, I need to go back to this because I remember loving it. And, you know, it's sad what happened. I'm glad the numbers has taken its place, has picked up. I mean, I remember when the numbers was very, very young as a site, before they had the entire format change, before they basically put a nice coat of paint on the website. And I'm so happy that we have it. But nothing, to me, nothing is, even the numbers, doesn't even compare to the OG Box Office Mojo. But thank you, Crunchy Beaver. I appreciate that. Johan Noxos. What's up, Johan? Thank you for the $20 super chat. Says, crazy story. I lost the crucifix. No, off the rosary you sent me 2 months ago. Found it in a random place last week. It came back to me. Please put this in the plate for me. Thanks, and God bless you, brother. Well, Johan, thank you so much, man. And that's amazing. That is truly amazing, dude. I'm so glad that you found it. I'm so glad that it found you. I'm so glad that it came back to you. And yeah, I just sent out some more rosaries a couple days ago. So there were a couple people waiting on rosaries. You should be having gotten those by now. I still have on the website, ombreviews.com. I still have the rosary request form if anyone is interested. I do send those out free of charge. Free of charge. I just, I like to give. I like to give those things. Charles Akawagu, what's up? A25. I say, recall Grace Randolph gave her predictions for the movie that will make $1 billion. I'm still laughing. Wait. She said that Dial of Destiny was going to make $1 billion? Oh, boy. I mean, let's be wrong. I can't laugh too much. I did say I did not think that Mario was going to make $1 billion. I did say it was going to make a lot of money. I even said I could see it getting to 900 million, but I couldn't see it get to $1 billion. So I was wrong there, clearly. But oh boy, Grace Randolph. Grace Randolph has had a lot of those takes. Let's see. CAC44, who is a member, Says, Odin, I haven't caught as many of your streams as I used to. Love y'all. This chat is the most decent among a few others. That is the best to hang out in. And that's, again, I have the rules, and I don't really necessarily even have to have them, because very rarely do I ever see Orange Chat Reviews or any of the mods I've ever had. Very rarely do I ever see them having to time anyone out or even give warnings. It's so rare, because the people who are here are just, again, I believe firmly, some of the best people on the internet, because we have each other's backs, we support each other, we can get angry together, but we can do so in a way that I think is much more constructive, you know? Let's see. Nick Brone, thank you very much, man, for the $10 super chat. Says, thanks for these streams. I've definitely learned more about how the box office works listening to your breakdowns. Well, thank you very much, man. I very much appreciate that. And yeah, and nowadays there are just so many. It's amazing how many other box office channels there are now. Because when I started covering it back in 2018, in the aftermath of Solo, Star Wars story, other than the normal people, right? Like Grace Randolph and Dan Murrell, who, has had his own channel for a few years now, but was a part, I think he was originally part of Collider. He had been doing box office stuff too, but up until then, not a lot of people were covering it. And so now it's kind of amazing to look at Valiant Renegade. Shout out to Valiant Renegade. That dude's getting picked up by national media for his coverage of the massive losses for Disney. We have WW Pro also covering this stuff. RK Outpost Ryan started covering the box office not too long ago. So it's really cool to have so many different people. And also, we all agree and disagree in so many different ways. We all have different methodologies. We use slightly different metrics. But it is really cool. And we all have different methods. For those that prefer deeper dives, you have people, like me, WW Pro, Valiant Renegade. And for those that want things a little bit more quick, to the point, you have, RK Outpost. And again, all of us are different, and I think it's awesome. King and Remsky over on Rumble says, is Grace Randolph real, or is she a troll? Unfortunately, I believe she is real at this point. Let me correct that. She's probably the fakest person I've ever seen. but unfortunately, I do believe that she actually does believe the things that she says. Zion Waters, regarding changes to Mission Impossible, no, the changes to Phelps were awful. They made the incorruptible lead character the villain of the film. Tom Cruise's character wasn't in the original. Okay, gotcha. Again, I never watched the original series, but I do feel that I usually don't hear a lot of complaints from people who are fans of the original. Not that they don't exist, but your average Patriot nerd listening on my car drive, hail to you. Hope that you are driving safely. Please drive safely. Frank G, hail to you. Crunchy Beaver, thank you, dude, for another $10 super chat. The way they ruined Star Wars was one thing, but Indy was my hero when I was young. I will never, ever give Disney another penny. Box Office Mojo was the best. It was. I'm glad that you stressed that, Crunchy. Absolutely, dude. OG Box Office Mojo was awesome. There was a subreddit, Reddit community that was dedicated to trying to rebuild the old site. It just never went anywhere, which just made me so sad. I wanted to support them, but no one ever really took control. There was anything really organized with it. If someone can somehow do that, and again, I think the numbers has come such a long way. They do great work, but there's just certain things that would make them better. Like, for instance, having the ability to toggle original release versus, having re-release data in there, having more up-to-date numbers adjusted for inflation, other things like that. It's mostly really good, though. It's mostly a very good site, especially compared to modern day Box Office Mojo. Keep in mind, Box Office Mojo has had so many errors and mistakes in their numbers over the past year. I remember John Campia, another winner there, John Campia. I remember when he ran with a headline that a movie had made a certain amount of money, and it was like, you're stupid if you think this movie is a flop. It made this much money. And then anyone with a brain cell, half a brain cell, could have looked at it and said, that's not the right number. That's clearly an accounting error. There's no way mathematically this movie could have made this much money this weekend. I remember. Brightburn85. Hey, Odin, tell me that movie theaters in North America are dying without telling me that North American theaters are dying. That's just a sad thing about it too, right? It's the theaters are going to be impacted more so than anyone else, right? These studios, as everyone's been saying, the studios can just write them off, right? They can just write them off. They can take some tax breaks here and there. They can, have the tax write-offs. But these theaters don't have that same capacity, right? These theaters are in such a much more precarious scenario. Some of them are able to innovate. Some of them are able to improve, but it costs a lot of money to do those things. King of Sharks, what's up? Thank you for the $5 super chat. I just checked all the local theaters. The regular theaters have on average 2 seats bought, but the IMAX ones are about a third full. Exactly, King of Sharks. Thank you for checking that. And again, that obviously is data that is specific to you, but that has been my experience with this, and I think it's been the most common experience that most people have had. When you look at what people are going to see, if you're going to have to spend already, right? The average ticket price is $13. If you're already spending $13, why would you not spend an extra $2 to $8 to get a giant screen in IMAX, giant sound? Even better if you can get the Dolby theater experience. I know that there are some that swear by the 4DX where the seat kind of moves, or I forget exactly what it is, but why not spend that much money already? Not to mention the amount of people. And this is something I would love to know. I don't have the data on this, but the last report I saw was that for AMC theaters specifically, there are about 900,000 AMC A-list members. What that means is 900,000 people can see 3 movies a week and can see those movies in any of the formats that are available to them. I honestly don't know what AMC gets as far as the ticket sale when you are using one of your free movies, one of your free movies. So when I get my ticket to go see, for instance, when I use my AMC A-list to get a seat for Indiana Jones, is that full price of the IMAX specific price going directly to Disney? Are they just getting a standard, generic, average price? Because again, my ticket is being redeemed, rather, through the AMC A-list, if you know what I mean. I don't know. I don't know how that specifically works. That's something I would love for someone to figure that out and do the math on that, because that could also end up kind of breaking open some of the stuff going on with this. Dragon Bricks, I'm another fan of the original Mission Impossible series. I did not complain about the changes in Mission Impossible 1. I just can never watch the rest of Cruise's Mission Impossible movies due to the changes in Mission Impossible 1. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, because the rest of the films are great. Except for 2. 2 is awful. Mission Impossible 2 is not good, but the rest are pretty strong. All right, we are well over time tonight, but thank y'all for being here. Seriously, still 123 people watching. Speaking of Mission Impossible, this one's going to be a little bit different than normal, but I am going to do a quick giveaway. So I actually have, these were recently on sale. I've got the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible 6-movie collection. This is the Blu-ray that includes all of the digital copies. Unfortunately, in transit, as is most often the case, some of these might have the actual case itself be broken. I tried to listen. You can always tell if a disc is loose. So if you notice, if you get a copy for any reason where, and this is for any giveaway that I do, if you ever notice that it's already open, unless I tell you it's a used copy that I have, that I'm giving away from my own collection, it will only ever be open because I am checking to make sure the disc is not loose, because I don't want the disc to scratch when I'm sending it to you. But I'll go ahead and do a giveaway. I'll give away, so this will be a YouTube specific giveaway. And I'll give away 2 copies. I got 3. One of those I'll save for my giveaways channel on Discord, but I'll give away 2 copies of this. So again, this is the 6-movie collection. So for anyone that either doesn't own these movies already, I own these films individually at different places. But for those that maybe don't have these already or want to catch up on them or anything like that, we'll go ahead and give away 2 copies. So these are Blu-rays, and they also come with digital codes for all 6 films. So this will be a little bit different than the normal giveaways on YouTube because a lot of people were confused last time and have been for a long time for the giveaways. So the way it's going to work is that you can only get 1 ticket. So that way, everyone, if they want to enter in, has the same thing to enter in. So I think that will just easily make things more streamlined. However, the way it works is as you watch the stream, for those that maybe don't know, I have a bot that is running in the background. And so every stream that you're watching, you're gaining what we call digital cookies. So it's like digital currency, as it were. And it's based in watch time. So you see the people right now. Victor Fontaine, for instance. I'll go ahead and highlight his comment. Right, Victor Fontaine, he checked his cookie count by putting exclamation point cookies. And therefore, Heimdall, the bot, pulled up, hey, you have, as a member of this channel, been watching for 87.6 hours, which means in total you have 72,000 cookies. Right, 72,000 cookies. 72,000 of the digital currency, right? And so the way it's going to work is if you want to enter in, the cost is 3,000 cookies. So if you don't have at least 3,000 cookies, you cannot enter in. So unfortunately, if you are a newer member, if you have not watched as much, I'm sorry. You won't be able to enter in. This is more for regulars. But I do these random giveaways every now and then. So I ask that you keep on watching because the more you watch, the more cookies you can get. But 3,000 cookies is going to be the cost to enter in. So only 1 ticket. So let me go ahead and open this up for everybody. So if you want a chance to win the 6-movie collection Mission Impossible Blu-ray set, and again, this is worldwide as well, so I will ship anywhere in the world. 2 copies will be given away. So again, Mission Impossible 6-movie collection, Blu-ray, and digital code. So it has Mission Impossible all the way up through Mission Impossible Fallout. And I believe it has some of the special features. I don't have all of those details memorized on hand, but if you want to enter in, the way it works over on YouTube is just what General Wingster did. So if you want to enter in, again, there is only 1 ticket. You can only enter in once for 1 ticket. General Abomination, I know, man. I know, man. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry. CAC44, sorry, Odin ain't Canadian. I'm not. You're right. I'm not Canadian. But if you want to enter in, just put enter, exclamation point, that's all together, a space, and then 1. So CAC44, you just need to move that around. I know it's confusing because the cookies are with the exclamation point first, but for the entering, it's enter, exclamation point, all one word. So just like what General Wingster has. If you want to enter in. If you want to enter in. There can only be 1, says Forever Sci-Fi. Well, there's 2. There can be 2 people winning. 1 ticket, yes. But yes, it is 3,000 digital cookies. 3,000 digital cookies. So you have to have been watching for a little bit. So for instance, Epic Ninja Shiro has been watching for 1 hour and has 260 cookies. So you do get a fair amount of cookies per hour's watch, but you do have to have at least 3,000. You have to have at least 3,000. But if you want to enter in just exactly what's up on the screen right now of what General Wingster put in, enter, exclamation point, a space, and then the number 1. And I can say right now, General Wingster has entered Orange Hat Reviews and CAC44. Those are the 3 people that I have entered in right now. Forever Sci-Fi, I just got your entry as well. And we will just leave this open for a few more seconds. Again, we will have 2 winners. We'll have 2 winners. Dragon Bricks X, I got your entry. Got your entry in. Thank y'all again for this amazing show. Still having over 120 people watching. Seriously, it's very, very humbling to see that. Midnight Eye. What are you doing, bro? What are you doing? Enter 2. Oh, goodness. So, you can only enter in one time, and that's for one ticket, but it does cost 3,000 digital cookies. And again, it's enter exclamation point, space, and then a 1, just like what is on screen right now. What you see on screen in the pinned comment. Enter Sandman. Yes. Thanatos, exactly. Enter Sandman. Bad Fish, just sub, that's okay. Pre-ordered all the 4K Steelbooks. Hey, no problem at all, man. No problem at all. Enter B1. No. All right. We're going to go ahead and close that off in 3, 2, and 1. All right. It is closed. It is closed. Entry is no longer being allowed. All right. We got 2 winners to choose here. Some people try to enter in late. I gave time. But anyway, our first winner of the giveaway is Keck44. Keck44, congratulations. Claim your prize. Keck44, claim your prize, good sir. And if you are a winner, please contact me either via email address, or if you have my Twitter, my Discord, whatever, you can contact me through there just so that way I know where to ship it. But Keck44, claim your prize. Claim your prize. Keck44, our first winner. Keck44. I respect Odin's aversion to texture stuff, but still pro pineapple pizza. Oh, Keck44, that's the worst thing you could have said. I want to rescind your prize because of that nonsense. But anyway, Keck44, just contact me. Again, Twitter is a great place to do that as far as contacting. But also, if you are on the Discord, you can DM me through there. Email address, odinsmovieblog@gmail.com. So please reach out so that way I know where to send that set. All right. So we've got one more person to choose. And so our second winner of the second 6-movie Mission Impossible collection is Forever Sci-Fi. Forever Sci-Fi, claim your prize. Forever Sci-Fi, claim your prize. Same thing as well for you, good sir. Please reach out to me so that I can know. Again, even if you have won before, just to confirm the shipping address is the same, if that is indeed the case. Sometimes people can win more than once. It happens. But Forever Sci-Fi, woohoo, I'll take it. Yes, you will, Forever Sci-Fi. So again, for the 2 winners, Keck44, Forever Sci-Fi, congratulations on winning the 6-movie collection of Mission Impossible. And if you did not win tonight, hey, that's okay. We have random giveaways. It's not every single stream, but every now and then I'm able to get a set of movies in to give away. I know that sometime in the fall, when Nefarious gets its physical media, I've already pre-ordered 5 copies of that. So I'll be giving those away. Also, if you are a Keeper of the Bifrost level member and above on the Discord, we have giveaways there much more frequently. It's one of the perks of being a Keeper of the Bifrost level from Patreon. Subscribe to our locals. Those are 3 places to get access to that Discord channel. It's hidden for everybody else. But for y'all, I will be putting this up soon as a prize to give away. Right now, though, if you are on the Discord, there is currently still a running right now for for a 4K Steelbook edition of John Wick. So please leave a comment in that chat if you have interest in getting that. I'll be closing that probably, if not tonight, then tomorrow. Forever Sci-Fi, congratulations, dude. Congratulations. And again, Forever Sci-Fi has been a member for quite a long time and has won 3 times over that course. So, good stuff. I have to send an email thing. Unless you've got a Twitter or unless you're on the Discord, you can, of course, contact me through there. Those are the best ways to contact. But anyway, instead of cookies for watching, can I get cookie dough ice cream instead, says Kincaid Rumsky. Abomination says, hype. Yes, indeed. I wish there was a way for these bots to exist that can combine all the chats in some way so that I could get everybody, more involved. But I'm going to keep my Rumble and Odyssey people. I'm going to keep my fam there, in my mind to make sure I take care of y'all at some point. And hey, if you didn't win tonight, hey, at least you still got this really, really cute image right here of Willow just passed out on the floor, and then River too. Both the puppies, very, very, very sleepy. Frank G, I am eagerly awaiting for you to review No Hard Feelings. No, I don't want to see it, Frank G. I just do not want to see it. Abomination says, I'm okay with being exiled. But anyway, that is gonna be it for Discord Twatter. I love you, Keck. You're awesome. Anyway, so what did we learn today? We learned that, oh boy, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is just a massive flop. And even if the numbers do come in a little bit better than what they were expected to be, it is set to lose probably upwards of $200+ million. And we'll do a full breakdown of what we could expect for this movie when we get the full numbers in tomorrow for the box office breakdown. So with all that being said, thank you all very much for watching. This has been a fantastic stream. Seriously, you guys are great. Check out the replay of the Salty Nerd Saturday podcast stream. It was a lot of fun. We talked also a little bit of Indiana Jones box office. I let them, rather they themselves, talked about Star Trek a little bit if you are still interested at all in those things. But yes, Indiana Jones set to be a massive flop. But I hope everyone has a blessed Saturday, blessed feast of the most precious blood of our Lord. And the shout out to the end of the video will still be from June. I will try to record the July shout out as soon as I can. Shout out though to Zine Waters, who just signed up today as a Chosen of Valhalla member over on Subscribestar. So just a shout out to you, good sir. As far as streaming schedule is concerned, for the streams this week, I think I'm probably taking Monday and Tuesday mornings off. Tuesday, of course, is 4th of July, so everyone has a blessed and safe 4th of July. Have some barbecue. I know I'm planning on doing some barbecue of some kind because that's just what you do on the 4th of July. But I'm also probably going to take Monday's morning stream, so the Good Morning Asgard podcast probably won't happen on Monday, simply because since I will be home with Baby Thor on Tuesday, since he will be out of school that day. He is in daycare, so he'll be home from daycare that day. There are some things that I do want to watch that I do want to go see in theaters, and so I want to be able to have that opportunity to go see an early showing if I can of a couple movies. So I'm going to try to do that either Monday or Tuesday, but Wednesday, Good Morning Asgard will probably still happen. So stay tuned to the community tab on YouTube. Also, I do still plan to record the podcast. I know that I wasn't able to get one specifically in June, but it will be recorded at some point. Hopefully John is able to see reason, but we'll have to wait and see. Mommy and Daddy's still fighting in that regard. If not, I might be able to get another friend to co-host for this month's podcast. Anyway, you guys are all amazing, beautiful people. I've gone on long enough, and as always, I hope that you all have a blessed night, and God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my June Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. Starting off first with Patreon, Father Luca Illich, Hymir Irie Hymason, Garrett Searles, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange Hat Reviews, you can check it over at his YouTube channel, Orange Hat Reviews, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Rosetta Allen, who you can check out at her YouTube channel of Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, who you can check out at her YouTube channel by the same name as well. Also to my Subscribestar peeps, Matt317, check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man, who you can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, to my Locals members, Miss Minnesota hockey fan, how about a hockey player, J.H. Schwalbach, and Robert Barnes, the amazing lawyer. And again, thank you all very much for being my supporters. If you want your name shout out at the end of every live stream and every video, check out the top link in the video description below. You also can get access to things like a giveaways channel where I give away Blu-rays, 4K steelbooks, all kinds of stuff every single, most weeks in the month. I try to give away something, or at the very least towards the end of the month, I will make it up with several giveaways. Basically, most people are guaranteed to walk away with something at the end of every single month. So if you want access to that, again, check out the top link in the video description below, as well as access to an exclusive podcast. This past month, I was actually able to record a great podcast with Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment. So you want access to that and also a plethora of other content, check out the link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.